So this is pretty interesting. Roger Rabbit. Disney has lost the rights to Roger Rabbit, and seems like all control of the Roger Rabbit IP has went back to the original creator, Gary K. Wolf. And so, yeah, Disney no longer has the rights to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is, I mean, I don't know. I talked about this a while ago on the show, but I think that Disney, if they really put their mind to it, like really put the effort into it, they could have made a fantastic, even better than the original film. But I feel like it would end up being more like Space Jam 2, which was just like pretty much a full feature ad for HBO Max. Like it wasn't even really a movie, it was just a fucking full feature ad. So, like, while I really would like to have seen a Who Framed Roger Rabbit 2, I really am glad we didn't get one. Like, I know back in the 90s there was test footage for like a 3D sequel, and I know that they had like the hand drawn shorts that they made right after the original film came out. But really, there's been no Roger Rabbit projects for the last 30 plus years. Like, there's been talks of a sequel. Like, I know Robert Zemeckis, he's talked about the last few years about how there's like, or there was, I mean, now that they lost the rights to it, Robert Zemeckis claimed that there was like a perfect script at Disney that they just weren't interested in. Like, he pretty much said that the current regime wasn't really interested in Roger Rabbit, and also Jessica Rabbit. They weren't really interested in like how she was presented back then. And so Zemeckis pretty much he wrote off like ever a sequel happening. He said that there's a script there, and this script actually, even though I heard him talk about this recently, I know Zemeckis has talked about for a while that there's been a script for Disney for a sequel, and they've just done nothing with it. And now, whether that's true or not, I mean, as iconic of a director and as fucking great of a director as Zemeckis is, um, it has to be said that the last decade plus, he's had a very spotty track record with qualities of films. So, whether it was actually a really good script or it was just kind of to him a good story, but might not have been good, we'll probably never know. But I don't know, it is kind of strange how Disney has really seemed to not have any interest in Roger Rabbit. Although it does make sense because one of the problems of Roger Rabbit as like an IP, and I guess this is kind of what I'm curious about with the original creator owning Roger Rabbit, because most people don't even know that Roger Rabbit is actually an adaptation of a book. Like, yeah, that's one fact about this film I didn't even know for a long time. But this is actually like the film and everything. And now, granted, it is very different. Like, the book is obviously different. It does not have Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse and every other cameo in the film. But like the core plot is like similar to the movie about like being framed for a murder or framed for a crime essentially. But like it does kind of make me wonder that like since it's like been reverted back to the original creator Gary K, because Disney, while I kind of was confused and still kind of confused about like why they never made a follow up, I kind of get it because the adaptation they made was pretty much a very collaborative process with Warner Brothers, and I think they was it Fletcher Studios too. I think it might have just been Warner Brothers, but nonetheless, it had Warner Brothers characters, Disney characters. To this day, it's actually the only time that Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse have officially been on screen at the same time. Which is actually, I mean, I still think that's a very significant moment considering how iconic that Bugs and Mickey are, respectively, their companies. Although at this point, funny enough, I don't think Disney's going to buy Warner Brothers, but I feel like eventually Warner Brothers, or so I think somehow ultimately Disney's going to own pretty much everything. So at some point, Disney's just probably going to own Bugs Bunny and Warner Brothers, and this isn't going to be a big deal that they even had a collaboration. But like as it stands, and especially like because back then, like way before crossovers and all the multiverse stuff and crossing over of different IPs was like a big thing. This was a pretty big deal. Like I would say, it still is a pretty big deal. Um, so I kind of get why Disney was like kind of reluctant to making a Roger Rabbit like follow up because there would does seem like the headache of legality would be a nightmare trying to like get Warner Brothers on the same page. And for some reason, Warner Brothers, they have not really been too keen on being concerned with the Looney Tunes IP, so they probably wouldn't even give a fuck about. They probably don't even care about using the Looney Tunes in any type of real meaningful way. So like trying to get Warner Brothers on board, especially now that they're up for sale, who the hell knows how that's going to happen? So or what's going to happen with that? So you know. I don't know. I get why that Disney hasn't done nothing with it, but like I feel like they could have at least done like shorts, like they did back when the first film came out. They could have done video games. But it seems like Roger Rabbit and Jessica Rabbit, they just kind of haven't been used for anything. So to me, I think it's a good thing that Disney lost rights to it. Because honestly, at this point, if they did make a sequel, it probably wouldn't be good. I mean, especially when it comes to Disney, we've seen their track record with remakes and reboots and sequels. I mean, yeah, they can make money. They make a lot of money, like the Lion King live action film, but like the actual quality of the films, that's a whole other discussion. So I'm kind of glad that Disney lost the rights. I mean, also the fact that because I didn't even know this. So apparently because I was kind of wondering this too. So from what I understand, the reason that Gary Kay got Roger Rabbit the rights back is that there is a copyright law that like essentially has like a 35-year window of like essentially if like that IP or whatever is not used, it reverts back to the original owner. And it's been about 36, 37 years since the original Roger Rabbit came out, which is fucking crazy thing it's been that long. So it's like essentially like default rolls back to the original owner. So now he has full control. Now, from what he says, it seems like he has complete control over like the stories. Like he can do anything he wants with the Roger Rabbit IP now. And he seems like he's pretty set on like making new projects, new movies, new shows. And I'm curious because I don't know this because this is what I guess is going to be interesting. Is I don't know. It's possible. And in a way, maybe it'll be better this way. Cause like when you think about Roger Rabbit, you think about like the collaborative animation of like, Warner Brothers, Disney, having Spielberg, Zemeckis. Like it had the perfect elements that came together for that film. And I don't know, like I wonder like what exactly would a non-Disney, non-Warner, like a completely standalone Roger Rabbit film or a show, like what would that look like? Because now, this is just me, this kind of dream, I guess you call it like dream writing or like my kind of like one of my ideas I would like is I would like for the studio MDHR, the studio that made Cuphead. I would love for them to. Now I know that they're a video game company, but like I would like for there to be like shorts or like a mini series and animation and art style of Cuphead, and you could just make classic hand drawn 2D animated shorts like that, or you can even make like video games. Like you can make a Roger Rabbit video game. Like I know Studio MDHR, I know they're making like a whole different thing, different from Cuphead. But I mean, considering like the original film was like an homage to the old '40s animation and the old '40s and '30s and like, even like the '50s like animated movies and shows. And Cuphead is also an homage to the '40s, the '50s, Fleischer Studios, Disney, Warner Brothers. So, like, the film and Cuphead have a lot of similarities, and like, there's been a ton of fan art of Cuphead crossover with Roger Rabbit, which would be a perfect crossover, in my opinion. So, like, I would love to just see an interesting crossover or like a collaboration between those two, like Roger Rabbit meets Cuphead. I think that would be like a really fun combination. But outside of that, like making like original animations, as far as like a live action adaptation, honestly, I would love to see a live action Roger Rabbit like modern day sequel. But like when I look at the kind of newer kind of live action projects from Space Jam 2, Alvin and the Chipmunks, not that they're bad, but I've yet to see. any new live action animated film compared to the quality or like anywhere near Roger Rabbit. Like you go back and you look at that film. Like I actually just rewatched this film a few days ago, so it's kind of funny that this is like a story now. You go back and you watch that film, and you can clearly tell watching it, like every piece of that film was made with people who are passionate about the film, passionate about their art, passionate about their craft. They had a love for the material that they were making. They had a love for animation. They had a love for filmmaking. There's a real passion you can tell. Like, and if you haven't seen the behind the scenes documentary, which there's two on YouTube, I would strongly recommend watching them, even if you're not a person who like looks at behind the scenes or making of games, not games, TV shows or movies. I would recommend this one because it is really fascinating to see how much work it took to actually make Roger Rabbit the film it is. Because like you look at the behind the scenes of like the puppeteering, the animation, the hand drawn animation, the notes, the fucking just painstaking paint drying type of pace it took to just like make sure every frame was like completely consistent and accurate and everything looked right, that the human and animation perfectly blended together. They put a lot of work into it. And I don't think that today, with especially how Disney's really become pretty anti 2D animation and are all 3D animation and eventually AI, they really don't have a focus on that. Like, really, I mean, Warner Brothers, they're not really keeping 2D animation alive either. I mean, we've seen how, I mean, they nearly lost half their fucking Looney Tunes catalog, and Tubi had to save it. Like fucking Tubi had to save the Looney Tunes shorts, which Warner Brothers should be the first to like actually be trying to preserve those, but no, Tubi had to save them. And then Disney, I mean, I don't even remember I think the last like technical, was it Wish? Was Wish hand drawn? I can't. I think it was, but I can't remember. But the last one I really remember was like the Winnie Pooh movie and the Princess and the Frog movie, and both of those are like well over a decade old. And Disney has really not shown any interest in going back to doing hand drawn animation. So no really big studio. Like I mean, I guess I don't know. This was kind of like a hail mary, but I guess maybe like a Roger Rabbit Studio Ghibli type crossover. That'd be kind of cool. Like, cause the one thing people have like always talked about of Roger Rabbit, like more so the last 20 years, because in the in universe in the Roger Rabbit uh lore, I guess you could say in the movies, there's like Toontown. So people wonder, like, well, like, is anime canon in Roger Rabbit? Because when Roger Rabbit came out, God, I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure when Roger Rabbit came out, anime was it was around, but I don't think it had gotten to like its peak yet. Like I don't, One Piece wasn't around yet, Naruto wasn't around yet, all the modern anime wasn't around yet. I think Dragon Ball was around at that time, and I think like Inuyasha maybe. I mean, there was a few, but it wasn't nowhere near as prominent as today. But that would be kind of cool to have an anime like Studio Ghibli type Roger Rabbit crossover. I'd be down to see what that looked like. But the one thing I really am curious to see about is Jessica Rabbit, because the last kind of big Roger Rabbit news that I remember hearing about was the whole change to the ride, because or I guess there was now, like a ride with Jessica Rabbit, and they changed her to being a detective to where she like wears a trench coat and a hat, and they pretty much like covered her up from the very revealing, very suggestive dress, iconic dress that she wore in the original film. They pretty much covered her up and made her like an independent professional where she's doing her own deal, and people were not happy about that. And so I'm kind of curious to see what like the non Disney, like non modern Disney interpretation of Jessica Rabbit is going to look like, because I think that the original Jessica Rabbit, she's a pretty good character. Like, I mean, it seemed on the surface she seems like a pretty just like superficial hot femme fatale, or femme. Is that how you say that word? Femme fatale, femme fatal. What? However you say that word, she kind of comes off like that, but she is, I mean, she's not the most deep character, but I mean she has some depth to her, like especially her relationship to Roger Rabbit, where she likes him because he makes her laugh. She just likes the simple things. Like she's not with him for money or for fame or because he's rich. Is she likes the personality? Which, looking at her, you would never think that she'd be into something like that. You think she'd be purely, like a gold digger or out for herself or using Roger Rabbit, but she genuinely cares about him, and she does like some very drastic actions to make sure that he's okay, to make sure he has a career, to make sure he's doing okay. She goes out of her way to make sure he's safe at her own risk. So, like, I think that Jessica, as she's portrayed in the original film, like, it's not like very upfront about that, but I think she has a really empowering character. So, I don't think there was really a need to like change her. Like, I don't think there was anything really bad about Jessica. Like, even when I rewatched it a few days ago, like, there's nothing in that film that has like aged. Like, in fact, I would say Roger Rabbit is like one of the few films that has aged pretty well. Like I would challenge someone to look at any part of Roger Rabbit and find something that's aged horribly or is aged terribly. Like the special effects in that film 30 plus years ago, way better than a vast majority of films that have come out in the last 10, 15 years. Like you compare that film, you compare Space Jam 2, which came out like a few years ago, to the quality of Roger Rabbit, it is a cosmic difference. Roger Rabbit is beyond superior. I mean, hell, you even can compare it to like the original Space Jam. Compared to the original Space Jam, still not that good. Like even I love this film, but even like Looney Tunes Back in Action still doesn't have that quality that Roger Rabbit does. Like Roger Rabbit stands on its own of how well it is aged. Like so many films that are way younger than Roger Rabbit have aged so poorly. And that film's aged great. Like the story has, the animation, the film, like everything in that film has aged great. So it's not like it's a film that's just like really bad by today's standards. Like in fact, it's actually aged pretty good. And so I do think that there definitely is an interest for a Roger Rabbit movie or show. The only thing is, I guess this is the one thing is like I don't know what Roger Rabbit's outside of like the people who are a fan of the movie. I don't know what the like general appeal of Roger Rabbit is because he's been pretty much just obscure for like 30 years. Like Disney's done nothing with him. So he doesn't really have much notoriety outside of like people who know the film. It's not like Roger Rabbit. If you just like showed a photo of him or just like if you showed a picture of Jessica, maybe, but Roger Rabbit, not really. And also, a lot of people hated Roger Rabbit in the original film, so there is that. So, like, I think people are wanting like a Roger Rabbit like show or movie, but I think the problem is people are gonna think that because I'm not really sure how I don't think even when like another Roger Rabbit movie or show comes out, unless I'm sure there's probably gonna be like a distinction of like this is not Disney, but I think most people are gonna assume this is like a Disney Warner Brothers crossover again, and they're gonna be expecting like Daffy Duck and Porky Pig and Goofy and Pluto, and they're not. There's not gonna be there. Like I mean, that's the kind of the only challenge I see is like, well, I think people, you know, want to see a Roger Rabbit sequel, I think they are more in the mindset of like wanting to see a sequel to the original film, and like that's just not going to happen now because Gary Kay has the rights to it, but he doesn't have the rights to Disney characters or any other characters. So it's going to be a completely original story, which honestly that might be better. Like as much as people kind of would go into a Roger Rabbit sequel like expecting like the crossover of like Warner Brothers, Fleischer Studios, it, at this point, I think people are more tired. Like people are tired of franchises, cinematic universes, post-cred scenes, pre-cred scenes. I think people have kind of come around again to they just want to see a good story, a very contained story. It doesn't connect to 100 fucking different shows and movies, and you got to watch this and you got to look at this, and this character's going to show up to set up this. Like I think people have gotten to the point where they just want to see a genuinely good story and have a good time. And so I feel like if, Gary Kay and whoever they end up, making the film with, whatever studio and whatever director, if they're able to make just like a good film, I mean, hell, that's good enough. I mean, especially since Roger Rabbit isn't like a really top, like, it isn't like a top IP. Like it's known for the movie, but that's it. Like no one really knows like the book exists. No one even knows there's a book. I'm sure most people don't even know who the hell Gary Kay is himself. But I do think that there is potential. Like I at this point now, it might end up being just a complete disaster. Like for all we know, Gary Kay might just make just absolute fucking trash films and shows going forward. But until then, I'm actually very optimistic because Disney, they haven't done nothing with Roger Rabbit and probably wouldn't have. I mean, the fact that they let the rights lapse to me kind of shows that they just did not give a fuck about Roger Rabbit because everyone knows Disney is they are insanely hyper protective of their property. Like they are part of why the copyright rules are so fucked as it is right now. And we've seen like with the whole Mickey Mouse Steamboat Willie dilemma, like how just fucking aggressive and unrelenting Disney can be when it comes to like actually like defending and protecting their property. So the fact that they just let this lapse, because I'm sure they knew this was going to happen, but the fact that they just kind of let this, the rights to Roger Rabbit revert back to Gary Kay kind of shows that they just did not really, they really did not care about Roger Rabbit. Which I mean, honestly, Disney, it's Disney. They're not gonna. This is not a loss to them. Like this is not like they lost fucking Star Wars or Marvel or Fox. Like they haven't done nothing with Roger Rabbit, so it's not like there's anything that they're really losing. And also, I don't know. For them, like they got so much going on that this is probably just like whatever. You can have your rights to Roger Rabbit, whatever. We're not gonna do nothing with it. Because I think Robert Zemeckis is right when he said that the current Disney brass really doesn't have any interest in Roger Rabbit. I think that's true because they got so much going on already. I mean, so many projects and stuff. Yeah, and then Hulu's going to be fucking cannibalized next year to Disney Plus. So, like, Roger Rabbit's just like a fucking drop in the endless haystack for them. So, it's not like this is like a big loss or anything for them. But I mean, I'm at least glad that we're not going to get a Disney sequel because as much as the hypothetical sequel to Roger Rabbit could be good under Disney, it probably wouldn't be. So I'm at least going to keep an open mind to see what happens. But yeah, this is an interesting development. I was not expecting to see that, but we're going to have to see what happens with Roger Rabbit and Jessica Rabbit going forward. But with that said, I think I'm gonna call it a day for right now, and I will see you good people later.